So when I think about the labor system at Twin Oaks, to me, I think it's this perfect balance between structure and flexibility. And I feel like that works really well for the community as a whole and for the individual members of the community. On one hand, we have a system in which everybody has to work 42 hours a week. You have to, that's what you have to do every week, a minimum baseline to live here. On the other hand, the only thing any one person has to do every week is a 2-hour kitchen cleanup shift, which isn't even 2 hours anyways. And other than that, we get to choose our work scenes based on what we're interested in, the times of day we like to work, all those kinds of things. So some people do indoor work, some people prefer more active outdoor work, some people prefer half and half. Some people like to stay up till 3 a.m. and sleep till noon, and they can arrange their schedule so they never have to work before noon. So in that way, it's just really very flexible. Almost no one here does the same job all day, every day. You could if you wanted, but again, most people like to have some balance and some changing throughout the day. So that's the flexibility, and the flip side of that is the structure. And every week, every member has a labor sheet, and they fill out the jobs they're planning on doing, and they hand them in, and one person is a rotating group of 4 people. They each do it once a month. More or less, the sort of short form version is they have a list of all the jobs that need to be done in the community, and they have everybody's labor sheets, and they sort of put them together. So if there's somebody, there's nobody to sign up for dinner on Tuesday or something, they have a list of people that have said, hey, if you ever need somebody to cook dinner, assign me that job. And so in that way, they fill in all the empty holes that nobody signed up for in a given week. And so that's the structure. So we make sure all the work of the community continues to get done week after week. And some people feel like, well, all these communes started in the 60s and 70s, and, they just dissolved in pretty quick order. And why is Twin Oaks still around 41 years later? And one answer to that question is we did the work to make sure all the work did get done, day after day, month after month, week after week, year after year. So to me, that's sort of the beauty of the system. And me, like many people here, most people here, I work, some indoor, some outdoor, some in different places. And what I really like about that is I feel like, if I lived in the mainstream, even if I had my dream job, I'd have to do it all the time. And here I can just, mix and match as my body and as my mind both would like to be engaged. I can do that in my work life here. The way that we organize our living situation here is that basically we have about 8 residences, and each member has their own personal bedroom in that residence, and then we share living rooms, kitchens, and bathrooms. And of course, the great benefit to this is in terms of sustainability. Compared to some communities, we actually make fairly conventional choices. We build with fairly conventional building materials and that kind of thing. But where we have our real sustainability benefits is in scale, and the fact that we do live so close together. Each residence has 10 to 20 people living in it, and so what that means is that instead of building, a house for every one person or couple or family, we just build one great big house and they all live in it together. Our largest residence is 7,000 square feet and 22 people live in it. And so we get our private space, which is our bedroom, but as soon as you step into the hall, that's shared space. And another way in which that benefits us by sustainability standards is, again, it's much more efficient to build one big building. You use a lot less materials than to build however many, 10 or 15 buildings for 20 or 25 people. You're not duplicating kitchen after kitchen after kitchen. It's just one big kitchen or 2 big kitchens for everybody. But then also in the long term, heating and cooling those spaces. It takes a lot less resources to heat one big space, again, and to continually heat a lot of little spaces, especially with duplicated rooms in each of those spaces. So that's sort of on a practical level, that's a strong benefit for Twin Oaks in terms of sustainability, is our shared living situations. One thing that is another sort of positive side to it all is, again, you step out your door and there you are, a ready-made sort of, not necessarily social scene, but people to interact with, that human connection just on a very sort of daily, casual level, which I think is important to a lot of people's, mental health. But of course, the flip side of that is sometimes that's not what you're looking for. And on the way to the bathroom, you don't want to run into 6 different people. And it can be hard for some people, I think, to find the private space, the downtime, the sort of quiet psychological space. We all have different needs in that realm. And for people who have a greater need, it can be more challenging living this way. But again, because we live so closely together in clustered housing, that means we have a lot of open space in our forests and our land where people can go and have privacy. We have sort of shelters in the woods where people can go and get some away time if they need it. A story that comes to my mind about this is when it was the night before the election, and it was going to be McCain or Obama, and I just went to bed and I figured I'd find out. I didn't stay up to find out. And so I wake up in the morning, first thing, I go into the bathroom. There's somebody already in the bathroom because we have open bathrooms here. Lots of things happen at the same time. And the person says, "Did you hear the good news?" And I immediately knew they were saying that Obama had won the election. And I just, aside from being happy about that, I just loved that moment, that's how I found out that he had won the election, by walking into this shared bathroom and having my co-communard give me that news. And I thought, I'm in a very, very small percentage of people who found out the news this way. And again, it was just this very sort of illustrative moment of, to me, the beauty and just the joy and the fun, in a way, of that kind of shared living. We tend to have a lot of people living in Twin Oaks who come from large-ish families. And that's not surprising. You know, there's a sense on which this is very like, you know, living in a large family, especially in the sense of really being able to have a constant sense of a little bit of give and a little bit of take. And, you know, that not everything is really right with, you're not the only person who's saying how things are going to be. There's all these other people's visions and needs and interests and ideas and wants to take into account. And so, again, it's not surprising that people who experience that on a family level choose it on an adult, independent living situation level. And I think that the person that Twin Oaks works well for is somebody who's able to be somewhat independently motivated. They can look around and see what needs to be done work-wise, social-wise. They can find a way into the group for themselves. But again, like any quality we have, when you take it to an extreme, it becomes a challenge. So people who are sort of much more forcefully, you know, trying to pull people in one way in a work area, or who are socially very sort of, you know, domineering or something like that, our group is not going to necessarily respond positively to that, because there is this sense of constant give and take between the, you know, 80 or 90 odd members that we happen to have at a given point in time. We are not as autonomous as a person in the mainstream in many ways. We're not as financially autonomous. Certainly, we share vehicles, so no one here has their own personal car. You can't just sort of jump in your car at the second you want. You know, you have to take into account other people's vehicle needs. And so, again, a person who's able to find balance in that is going to do well here. And a person who's much more sort of used to being in control, having things go their way, or being able to exert sort of the force of their personality almost even, is going to run into troubles here. And sort of ironically, in a way, those may be people who are showing leadership skills within the community and maybe even helping us develop and change in new directions that do benefit the whole group. But again, there's a balance point there. And the question is an individual member able to find that balance for themselves to make it work for both them and the group, or is something going to be out of whack? It's sometimes said that the sign of a healthy group is not the presence or absence of conflict, because it's inevitable that conflict will arise, but how the group deals with that conflict when it does arise. And we have various ways we do that. I mean, within any conflict, work or personal or interpersonal relationship or whatever, generally the people who are closest to the situation are obviously, of course, going to first try to address it, like that would happen anywhere. And here, sort of often that takes care of it, but if it doesn't, if it gets bigger, if it's unresolved or it doesn't resolve or keeps growing even, more and more people who stand, as it gets bigger in the community, more and more people will see it and try to address it. If it gets large enough, we have a group of people here called the process team who will sit down, maybe do third-party mediation with the people, you know, just talk to people who are involved, find a resolution for the situation. And again, it's sort of, in a way I think of it as it starts small with a problem, trying to address it. If it doesn't resolve and gets bigger, we address it at a bigger level and a bigger level until maybe it's a community-wide issue, which doesn't happen very often, mercifully.